Well, we all have a massive amount of thoughts every day. You know, it's hardly a moment we have without some kind of thought. And those thoughts, some of us, occasionally we have some thoughts that make us feel good. We've commended ourselves, we've been loving, we've been kind, we've seen somebody else that way, or we've extended those thoughts to them, and so on. But then there are other times we're stuck in our fear thoughts. What's going to happen? What's going to be the outcome here? Will I be able to survive this economy? Ever go back into the office to work again? You know, all these kind of things. Having more conflict with my spouse or with my kids, being at home all the time. And our thoughts go along, and often there are a lot of judging thoughts we might have about ourselves, to blame ourselves. Well, what happened is that we're playing out ones that got programmed in when we were little kids. If we had parents that were critical of us a lot, or if we had parents that were very kind and loving and supportive, we're more likely to have those kind of thoughts ourselves, about ourselves or toward others. And so if we have the negative programming, not to blame ourselves for it, that just plays it out more. But to see, okay, that's a part of programming in my brain. I'll say my computer brain, because that's where we got the idea of a computer, was from the brain. And with the computer, if we have thoughts that we don't like, and there we go delete, 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 and install new ones. Well, we can do the same thing with our brains, and we mostly forget that we can do that. And we forget that we're the ones creating our world through what we're seeing and how we're interpreting it, what meaning we're giving to it. Most arguments I have is I'm right and you're wrong, and I try to convince the other person about how right I am. That rarely works. That just makes me feel bad and the other person feel bad and dampens our relationship. But if I can recognize that if I'm not being kind and supporting and loving and forgiving, and if I'm being critical and judging and fearful and all that kind of stuff, I'm just playing out some old programs that I may not want to keep. And the good news is that there are tools available that we can use now to get past those old programs, because they're not helping us. And we'd like to have the kind that brings us back to peace and empowerment and happiness and health, because we know that the New England Journal of Medicine reported back in the late 80s from a study at that time that 80 to 90% of all physical symptoms are stress related. That stress contributes to our bodies and how we play out the illnesses. And our schools of medicine are really more in the dark ages, from the science of Isaac Newton 350 years ago, that something outside us causes a problem and something outside us will fix it. But the key part is that we need to embrace, I have the power to change the thoughts and the meaning and interpretation that I gave to it that's upsetting. And when I do that, I can feel better, and I'm reducing the stress, and I'm actually enhancing my health as well as my happiness. And I'm also engaging in more satisfying relationships when I can learn to do that and get rid of the old programming that kind of pulls me automatically into that. If I can remind myself when I'm hearing those negative presentations in the media, and we know that people who edit the news are trained to bring in the negative, and to bring that in. In fact, most news is 95% negative on purpose. Why? That engages the cortisol and adrenaline. And then people can get us addicted to our own cortisol and adrenaline as we can to heroin. And so what that does is just makes stress come to the foreground, meaning the media companies can make more money because they can sell the ads for more, because people get addicted to the stress and they go watch the news more and they sell the ads for more. But what they're not seeing is that they're affecting the whole culture and the health and the happiness of the whole culture. Yes, we want to be informed about things that are negative, but I have the choice as to how I deal with that. I can listen to the news and I can react with a lot of fear and anxiety and worry, or even hatred, or what it might be. Or I can listen to the news and just see, okay, maybe like even with Putin, you know, I can, instead of worrying about what he's going to do, I can see that he's coming out of fear, acting in such a way, and trying to be so bravado and so on. Well, I just send him healing compassion that he heals, and if more of us did that, he's more likely to calm down, because thoughts are never private. The whole science of the last century show that every thought has an effect on everything around us. And so I can begin to realize the power of my thoughts. Let me choose the ones that create the world I want and the world inside me that I want, and the kind of relationship that I want, the kind of health that I want, the kind of success or failure in my work that I want. whichever is programmed in, I'm more likely to have that happen automatically. But if it's not the positive side, we can get motivated to use those current tools and explorations to press the delete button on them. Certainly, if you'd like to learn more about these methods or these tools or the combinations of them and how they work, I'll be glad to talk with you about it. You could contact me by phone or by email, or you could call me and we can make an appointment or two and we could discuss it more in relation to your area, your issues, your problem areas, and what would be effective for you to do together. So I'd be happy to explore those things with you. I have people who want to come in person can see me in New York City or in Westport, Connecticut. Others may prefer to have session by Zoom or telephone or FaceTime or things like that. So that's possible too, especially during this coronavirus situation. So whatever works for you is I'm open to explore with you. But I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about what this therapy is like.